What is Instacart? Instacart is a grocery delivery company in the vein of Uber, and that's to say, a corporation where its workers are independent contractors and not employees. And in this case, the workers are referred to as shoppers, or service shoppers. Now, lately, due to the fear of coronavirus in this foul year of our Lord 2020, Americans are increasingly reliant on gig-delivered groceries. But due to the nature of the crisis, the workers themselves are at a fantastic risk, and their employment status leaves them with little hazard compensation that other unionized workers have strived for. Reasons for striking. On Monday, March 30th, 2020, there was a gig work walk-off, where thousands of employees turned off their phones and refused to work. This is because of fury over the inadequate safety measures that Instacart has provided, in spite of their public relations campaign that aims to create the image that they are ahead of the crisis. Because of their employment status as gig workers, Instacart shoppers often have zero health benefits, perfect in times of a contagious pandemic. They have a touted 2-week sit time for coronavirus, but in order to claim this, the service shoppers must prove an official positive COVID-19 test result, or have been ordered to quarantine by a government authority. The note of a doctor to stay home isn't enough. Because the test takes several days to develop, workers are unable to get sit time even if they're showing symptoms. With nightmare scenarios like per trip payment as low as a record $3.25 and a terrible $10 in most cases, workers are enraged that they are being made to risk their health for peanuts. The urgency of their job also demands greater compensation from a company flush with capital. Demands. As a result of these unresolved problems, many workers walked off the job on Monday. The Gig Workers Collective and Instacart shoppers have issued the following demands to Instacart CEO Apoorva Mehta. Failure to meet these demands will result in increased pressure from strike advocates and more walk-offs. Now, these are the demands issued from Vanessa Bang. She's the chief organizer of the Gig Workers Collective and sort of like the half union force behind the Instacart strikes. 1. Safety precautions at no cost to workers. PPE, at a minimum hand sanitizer, disinfectant wipes and spray, and soap. They want hazard pay, an extra $5 per order, and defaulting the in-app tip amount to at least 10% of the order deal. An extension and expansion of pay for workers impacted by COVID-19, anyone who has a doctor's note for either pre-existing condition, that's a known risk factor, or requiring a self-quarantine. The deadline to qualify for these benefits must be extended past April 8th. Now, I think during a time of crisis, these demands are entirely reasonable, especially when taking into account how vital the service is to people who cannot leave their homes. Immediate results. As a result of these walkouts, Instacart has offered mild concessions to its gig shoppers. They plan within the week to distribute so-called health and safety kits to the gig shoppers. They'll receive a cotton reusable face mask, hand sanitizer, and a thermometer. Instacart claims that this walkout of thousands of employees during a time of unprecedented demand has had no effect on their service, but they've claimed that before, during a strike in 2017, and it seems to be their go-to PR move during strikes to claim that they're not having an effect, when obviously they are. Alright, worker reaction. Instacart's worker reaction to this offer has been a collective eye roll, skepticism, and cynicism. They were offered face masks and hand sanitizer when they demanded hazard pay. Organizers of the strike called it a step in the right direction, but still a far cry from adequate. And frankly, I think that's being gracious. There's an article on Medium.com that said, quote, "There is still no meaningful progress in protections for the shoppers who will fall ill," end quote. Gauge shoppers on the Reddit community, Instacart shoppers have expressed bitter frustration over the lack of hazard pay for close contact work during a global pandemic, and frankly, who can blame them? I know it's not all about us, and we really are serving the community right now, but the pay lately has been abysmal. Every order is a double or triple, and we are risking our butts for pennies unless the customer leaves a fat tip to make up for Instacart's low pay. I finally switched to 100% food delivery a few nights ago. It had made 30% more than I've been making doing a 50-50 split between Instacart and food delivery. I also am exposed less by not being in stores. Just some food for thought. Stay safe, everybody. So what I'm getting by reading this is that these people genuinely consider the work they're doing a community service. Right? They're making sure that people who are too scared to go out have groceries, have food to eat. But they're being paid peanuts to do it. And I understand that volunteers don't get paid and volunteers serve the community, but that's not the same thing. They're making peanuts, but Instacart is profiting off of their sense of community service. Solutions. Workers have a right to work in safe conditions and to higher pay when the conditions are unable to be met. The strikes in this case are only necessary because of Instacart's idleness in the face of a dangerous crisis. Instacart was content to use PR to satisfy customer concerns rather than actually address the situation in a meaningful way. It's only because of Instacart's predictable lack of action that forced workers to do the moral thing and strike in order to protect themselves, the gig workers, and the customers, who would certainly be at a higher risk of contracting coronavirus if the company had been allowed to continue on its chosen course. If the worker strike action succeeds, customers and gig workers alike would be much safer. Now, the strike action is going to make the customers safer because prior to the strike action, Instacart apparently didn't give a fuck about the customers. They couldn't care less if the employees were contagious and coming to work with corona. They didn't care. They didn't provide hand sanitizer before there was strike action. So how are you even know if the groceries that were getting to you at your door in your safe quarantine weren't already contaminated with corona? Because for fuck's sake, the workers could be carrying it. Because they couldn't... Instacart could not be fucked to give the workers the proper protective equipment they required to carry out service work in times of a global pandemic. Instacart doesn't give a fuck. Alright, let's talk about media presuppositions. While reading articles on the topics involved here, I noticed in a few sources that many news outlets carry presuppositions. Obviously, the striking action to the company, Instacart, is costly, but the implied bias is that the costliness to the company would be a bad thing. Now, because of investment and plans to upsize in the coming years, Instacart, I read in one article, has more than $1 billion in loose capital at its fingertips. It could use that money to address worker concerns over their own personal safety during the highly contagious coronavirus pandemic. The CEO even claimed that it didn't need the profit, and it's going to use it to scale up their enterprise across the U.S. Now, it's very important to note that this money could be used to ensure the safety of the gig workers during the crisis, but instead the company did nothing until their hands were tied by strike action. And even then, they offered the minimal possible concessions of some hand sanitizer and face masks, which they should have had that already, since day one. By focusing on public PR instead of meaningful action, Instacart created a vital danger by distracting the public with cozy words and neat graphics. Those are hallmarks of propaganda. Well, all this while a very real threat raged. This demonstrates to me an irresponsibility by craven seeking of profit before genuine concern for worker and customer lives. Now, if the company was capable of even meager offerings of masks and thermometers, why have they waited till now? If they've been trying to get them this whole time, why didn't they say they're on the way? Because they weren't. They weren't going to get those simple basic things until strike action by the workers forced their hand. The solution then, obviously, is workplace democracy. And an understanding among the gig workers of America that in companies working on contribution margins, workers have the high ground. Those claiming that striking will put customers in danger of going without food should note that these workers are being put in harm's way every day as a matter of doing their jobs, and that their demands will help sanitize the delivery. The demands are going to make the customers safer. Once again, the only moral pressure is coming from below. The company Instacart is using public relations to make itself seem in control of the crisis through advertising. But as always, a private, profit-driven corporation will pursue wealth before anything else. And yes, that includes customer safety. Yes, that includes worker safety. That includes the health of everyone who orders through them. They don't care if you're ill as long as it doesn't reflect back specifically on them. I think it's obvious Instacart's corporate direction should be democratically in the hands of the people who do the gig work for it, because they have shown themselves responsible. The CEO, Apoorva Met, should resign and be glad that nobody's calling for charges placed against him for endangering and misleading the public.